Hello students, welcome back to Notebook. In the previous video, we learnt about the Indus Valley Civilization, commonly referred to as the Harappan Civilization. In this video, we will continue our journey and learn about the Indian civilization after the decline of the Harappan Civilization. For 1500 years following it, the different states of the Indian subcontinent were ruled over by different kings. Settlements were also established. It was also during the period that the Rig Veda was written. Agricultural establishments developed along North India, the Deccan Plateau, and Karnataka. The emergence of megaliths or stone structures is also attributed to this period. Agricultural practices became more organized. Political processes gained complexity, and a number of new states were established. Historians focus their attention on coins, texts, inscriptions, and other cultural artifacts to piece together the history of this time. In the 1830s, Indian epigraphy or the study of inscriptions flourished. James Prinsep, an officer of the East India Company, decoded Kharosthi and Brahmi inscriptions and coins. These artifacts often revealed the name of King Piyadasi. This was an honorific title attributed to King Ashoka. Inquiry into a political history of India enabled both Indian and European scholars to chart the trajectory of ruling dynasties. To do this, scholars and historians studied several languages, including local and regional ones. Consequently, they began to establish a link between the political, economic, and social fabric, locating history contextually. During the 6th century BCE, several early states emerged. Cities grew, the use of currency developed, as did the use of iron. Religious and philosophical schools of thought like Buddhism and Jainism emerged as well. Early Buddhist and Jain texts mention 16 states or Mahajanapadas, though the names of these states vary depending on the source consulted. Avanti, Gandhara, Koshala, Kuru, Magadha, and Panchala are mentioned quite often and are considered to be important. Monarchs ruled most of the Mahajanapadas. Other states, known as Ganas or Sanghas, were oligarchic in nature. Here, men shared power and were collectively referred to as Rajas. Buddhas and Mahavira were believed to have belonged to Ganas. Each Mahajanapada had a capital city. These cities were usually fortified. Resources were required to maintain these fortifications as well as an army. During this time, the Brahmanas began writing the Dharma Sutras in Sanskrit. These texts laid down the rules for monarchs as well as their social categories, usually the Kshatriyas. While some states boasted standing armies and maintained administration, other states recruited militia from among the peasants. Let us now proceed to learn some details about the Magadha Mahajanapada. Magadha, the most powerful of the Mahajanapadas, can be located in modern-day Bihar and its surrounding areas. Magadha flourished due to agricultural production, accessibility of iron mines and transportation, and communication provided by Ganga and its tributaries. Elephants, an important aspect of the army, were also found in surrounding forests. However, Buddhists and Jain scholars had attributed Magadha's strength due to the ambitions and policies of its ruthless monarchs, Bimbisara, Ajatasattu, Mahapadmananda. Magadha's first capital was Rajgaha, or present-day Rajgir, in Bihar. It was a fortified establishment in a hilly region. In 4th century BCE, Pataliputra, located in the recent-day Patna, became the capital of Magadha. The Mauryan Empire, founded by Chandragupta Maurya, emerged in Magadha. The territory of the empire extended as far as Afghanistan and Baluchistan. Under the leadership of Ashoka, the empire extended as far as Kalinga, located in present-day Orissa. Scholars have used several archaeological sources to construct Magadha's history. These include accounts of the Greek ambassador Megasthenes' Arthashastra written by Chanakya and Buddhist, Jain, Puranic and Sanskrit texts. Sculptures were also used for this purpose. Ashoka was among the first rulers to inscribe messages for his subjects and officials. Ashoka's inscriptions on pillars and rocks provide valuable insight into his reign. These inscriptions propagated his understanding of Dhamma. Dhamma, as propagated by Ashoka, impressed upon people the notion of respect, generosity, kindness, and tolerance for all traditions and faith. Most of Ashoka's inscriptions were in Prakrit. Special officers called Dhamma Mahamattas were in charge of spreading the universal message of Dhamma. Ashoka's inscriptions mention 5 major political and administrative centers of the empire: Pataliputra, Takshila, Suvarnagiri, Tosir, and Ujjaini. These inscriptions were found all over the area from the northwestern provinces of Pakistan to Uttarakhand, as well as Andhra Pradesh and Orissa. Historians expound that it is unlikely that the administrative power was evenly distributed along this vast region. However, it is possible that the political control was strong around the political centers, while the extended areas were used for acquiring material resources. Land and riverine routes were accessed for transport and communication. Those travelling from centres to the provinces were not only equipped with provisions but also provided with military protection. Megasthenes' account notes 6 subcommittees in charge of organising military activity. One subcommittee organised transport and provision, while the other managed the navy. One of the subcommittees looked after the infantry, the other looked after horses. The 5th subcommittee took care of chariots, and the final subcommittee looked after the elephants. The advent of the Mauryan Empire was an important landmark in Indian history. Under colonial rule, many nationalist leaders regarded Ashoka as an inspiration, both due to his power and humility. The Mauryan Empire lasted for about 150 years. Ashoka's successors, though they enjoyed grandiose titles, did not enjoy his power or strength. Hence, the 2nd century BCE witnessed the emergence of various new chiefdoms and kingdoms. The kingdoms of Deccan, the chiefdoms of Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas. In the south enjoyed both stability and prosperity. Chiefs and kings like the Satavahanas and the Shakas acquired revenue and resources from trade. The social status of many kings and chiefs are ambiguous. However, once they were powerful, they also sought social status in multifarious ways. One of the ways was to assert a lofty status to associate oneself with several deities. Kushana rulers, who reigned over large provinces of Central Asia and Northwest India, did this by adopting titles like Devputra. Enormous statues of the Kushanas have been found in shrines near Mathura. Some have been found in shrines of Afghanistan. This denotes that several rulers considered themselves quite godlike. Eventually, in the 4th century, large states like those of the Gupta Empire emerged. These states were somewhat controlled by Samantas, or local rulers who provided military and material support to rulers. Historians and scholars attempt to reconstruct the history of the Gupta Empire through inscriptions, coins, and literature. These also include prashastis. Poets composed these in praise of their patrons or kings. Prashastis are often treated only as valuable works of poetry, as it is difficult to pull out the factual truth from them. The Pragya Prashasti or the Allahabad pillar inscription was composed by Harisena in praise of Samudragupta. The historical accounts and inscriptions often provide us with certain details of the reign of a ruler. However, it is often difficult to ascertain how the ordinary people or subjects viewed their king. Anthologies such as the Jatakas and the Panchatantra have aimed to address this. One of the stories, Gandatindu Jataka, aimed to describe the plight of the subjects under a wicked king. The Jatakas were written in Pali. As is mentioned in the Jatakas, kings often tried to fill their treasuries by heavily taxing the rural population to meet the growing demand for taxes which had to be paid in kind. The rural population shifted to plough agriculture to increase their production of crops. Peasant communities also used irrigation techniques to facilitate production and produce a greater yield. Such facts are often recorded in several inscriptions of kings. The social fabric in rural communities was nuanced. All did not enjoy equal status and power. Large landholders, known as Gahapati, and the village headmen were powerful and exercised control over poor agricultural labourers and peasants. The Tamil Sangam texts mention different categories of people. Large landowners were known as Villalar, ploughmen as Uzhavar, and slaves as Adimai. This classification was possibly based on a person's access to and ownership of land. What are land grants? Who were the rural elites? What sort of inscriptions did land grants have engraved? We will find out the answers to these questions in the second part of this video lesson. To continue with this journey, log on to the second part of the lesson on Notebook. See you soon.